Good morning, Rabbi Sai. Yisroel and Mordechai. Welcome to all the guests. I just want to show a few small things. People that have a Satayv. Shapsei Cohen put in 905 shekel. I didn't show the other one. It's 600 plus 305. Hakar Satayv to Rebelli for 905 Gishmake Dapim since Masechtas Rosh Hashanah and still counting. Your Talmud since Kiddushin, haven't missed a daf since I joined Yeshir, Brooklyn, New York. Yeshir Koyach. And Rabbi, I think my favorite video from the entire campaign was done by no other than Yaakov Citron. Yaakov sits here almost every day. He's very talented. This is what he does for a living. And Rabbi Sai, here goes.
A lot of people ask me why a share with daily sponsorships needs a fundraiser. The amount of resources Eli employs just so that we can understand and enjoy our learning is insane. And being in the video business, I know how much these things can cost. Not to mention all the other costs in running a program for over 20,000 people. If you can bring a Jew to start learning for only $35, consider this an opportunity and please donate whatever you can to help bring more Jews closer to Hashem.
Shmak. So I haven't read an email in, 10 days or so, I don't think, in a very long time. Very busy with the campaign and everything. And I spoke about this, showed the video, and the follow-up, how somebody donated another $10,000 because I took this video. I want to read you this video. Hopefully, I will not cry again. Usually, I like to read a few times before I read it here, so I don't cry by public. That didn't happen. It's a long one. Just going to read one email now. Dear Belly, thank you for taking the time to speak with me Wednesday night in Muncie during those last precious and exciting minutes as the campaign was nearing its end. I'm glad and somewhat shocked my story about losing my Gemara and finding MDY resonated enough to motivate additional giving. As a testament to the impact you're making on Klal Yisroel, the 5-figure donation also helps lessen the embarrassment of telling the world I wasn't learning Gemara for the past 15 years. I didn't tell you the full story, which is why you might have concluded that it was the trauma of losing my Gemara that caused me to stop learning. The actual reason is much more relatable and familiar. I was a weak learner, and a weak learner could survive while in yeshiva, but after yeshiva is a different story. The pool of potential chavrusas becomes much smaller, and the guys looking for chavrusas tend to be more serious and skilled learners. The few chavrusas I had felt more like tutoring than actual chavrusas, so they wouldn't last long. Over time, I got tired of the rejection and having to once again put myself out there, revealing to yet another person I wasn't on the level they had assumed. Eventually, I stopped looking. At this point, my learning was hanging by a thread. I wasn't learning daily, but when I would try to learn, I usually relied on my Gemara Ksubas because it had so many of my notes. I enjoyed it, and I was familiar with a few dozen of the Dapin, although I had never come close to finishing the Masechta. I had also had tremendous sentimental value because each page reminded me of my time in yeshiva and what I had accomplished. When I lost the Gemara on the plane, I essentially lost the excuse I had been giving myself that I was still in it, that I was still learning. But the reality is that I hadn't been learning anything new or with regularity for quite some time. There were other Gemaras from yeshiva in my notes I could have used or could have just used an art scroll. But the reality was setting in that I did not prepare myself for a life of learning after yeshiva. After that point, I did like many people do. I went to shiurim and would go through streaks of learning Mishnah Brura, Mishnai, Shnai Mikra, but my Gemara learning was essentially over. I reached the breaking point right before my 38th birthday. My son Akiva has started learning Gemara that year, and I asked myself, how could I have high expectations of his learning if I wasn't learning myself? I was unhappy and ashamed of the life I was living and felt disconnected from the Torah world. I wasn't living the Torah life I had envisioned, and I wanted to make a change. The Daf Yomi is about to begin Ksubas, so when a friend recommended that I join, even though I had turned him down for every Masechta since Brachas, I decided now it was time to jump in. I was determined to finish Ksubas right after first starting it nearly 20 years earlier in yeshiva. That explains why I decided to do Daf, but that had nothing to do with you. You actually came to the picture about 7 months earlier. Someone sent me the powerful video clip of Torah Phenom from Ramat Shemesh talking about his son and his love of Gemara Tainus. You completely put yourself out there, and it was a raw and emotional video that left a strong impression with me. That's the reason why I chose MDY. When I started Ksubis with the Daf, and I'm incredibly thankful I did. My goal wasn't to finish Shas. I was going to take it day by day with the hope of completing the Masechta. That fall, I made a big siyum in my home, surrounded by my family and friends. I didn't mention it that night out of fear of embarrassment or sending the wrong message to my children, which I'm not sure he didn't want me to read this email at the end. He said I could, but the fear of sending the wrong message to the children, I think, no, being real with the children is the right message. And telling them that people struggle and now you come back, I think that's a great message. But that was my first siyum. I had longed for that moment for decades, thinking it would never get there, but Yeshir helped me, daf by daf, to realize that goal. I've now been learning Gemara every day for the past 639 days. The sense of pride and accomplishment this year has provided me is difficult to describe, but it feels almost like a second chance at life. I feel connected to Torah in Yiddishkeit in ways that were just missing before joining this year, and when I go to sleep at night, I feel like I'm back on the right path. Thank you for everything you and the team do. Beyond the insane hours put into the shir and the energy needed to make the shir what it is, thank you for putting yourself out there, for coming out of your own comfort zone. It made a difference. Wishing you and the MDY team continued success in Simcha and spreading Torah, your Talmud Zev Kohler. Very stark. Now the thought is, it's a thought, machshava, that happened through this thing. I think that we should maybe compile the stories. Instead of it being a story of myself, it should be a story of MDY. MDY stories. People from MDY, stories like this and the other stories that we said in the last week or so, and all the stories, including Binyomin Ben Schwartz from Farakwe, and Chulu V'chulu, Yisrael Gordon, Yechiel Gordon, that story, the kid that was nifted from brain cancer, V'chulu V'chulu. The Masechta is sponsored by Anonymous for the safe and speedy return of all the hostages. If you feel your story belongs in that new book that we're going to write, I don't know who's writing it, I have to negotiate it. Send in your story. And if you have a story that's your favorite story and you want Lili Nishmas, zechariah ben Moshe Nishmas Chai bas Yosef. Paras HaChodesh before Shlima Elimlech ben Tzipora. Paras HaChodesh Ahron Fraiman, it should be zchus to rebellion for continued siyadta, dishmaya, and teaching Torah to Klal Yisroel. Paras HaChodesh Yosef Ben Chaya Sara for all the zchusim that come from supporting limud Torah. Paras HaChodesh Binyomin Rosenfeld for hatzlacha in business and all my endeavours. Paras HaShavua Lefur Shlema Mordechai ben Esther. Again, Rabbi side together. Lefur Shlema Mordechai ben Esther. Amen. In honor of the wedding of Yisroel and Blumie Chaifetz, Sheyisku Livnais Bayis Nema Yisroel. Paras Hayoy Mordechai Sepaznik L'Zeichen Nishmas Chaim Levi Groner Habocher Chaim Levi Zechroy Levracha Ben Reb David. Big MDY that was just nifter yesterday, the day before. Mazel Tov Yisroel Goldman on his Nachas tefillin. He should continue to give Yiddishe Nachas to his parents, Yosef Ben Chaya Goldman, and the extended Goldman and Levin families by Zaydim Babi Paras Chaim and Zahava Levin. The heart of the month and honors of the zechus for needs of childbirth, his daughter and a healthy baby. Mazel Tov Rabbi Isai, to David address, his son became a chassan to another MDYer, Michael Schwartz's daughter, Emuna Schwartz, and Akiva Ziegler's son also became a chassan. Rabbi Isai, to remind Oilam, I said it yesterday, so a lot of people, 30, 40 people. Oh, look what it said. I just said that, Tzaddik. And there's the raffle, the big $10,000 raffle is next Sunday. For a donation of $100, you get into the raffle. We're still $80,000 below our second goal. Be'ez Hashem, we're going to hit it. Huh? $100 or more. Yeah, if you give 1,000, somebody just gave 1,000 this morning. Oh, one of my friends gave $3,600 last night. He will be in the raffle, Be'ez Hashem. Maybe 36. I don't know what the rules are. Makes sense, no? Or you could just go in 36 times and just put $100. Rabbi said we're holding by a brand new Mishnah. Who? Emider?
Yeah, for his son, his nephews.
Shalom Aleichem.
I'm leaving today, but he came for shir.
Shalom Aleichem. What's your name again? Abinder with a B. Ambinder. From Monsey, New York. And you do the shir? You with us? Yavaldik. Shalom Aleichem. Welcome. You're on the WhatsApp groups? Great. Who's that gentleman in front of you? Shamalay, what's your name? Dallas, Texas. Now listen, I'm sorry I went crazy. Like compared to Muncie, New York. Dallas, Texas. It's unbelievable. Beautiful. All right, so we're brand new Mishnah. Oh, Shalom Aleichem. We have a guest there. What's your name? From?
Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn, New York. Where do you live in Brooklyn? What street?
13th and L.
13th and L. L and 13th. L and 13th. Gewaldig. All right. Zok the Gemara. Or the Mishnah. We're holding by the Mishnah, sponsored by Moshe Cohen.
No, it's the other guy
That's right. And then in New York, they're like, you have to say your baby. I said, no, Nachman doesn't let me. I said, okay, he's not here now. Say it.
Even when I'm not there.
That's right. I have Moira. You should know I didn't do it. Check out.
Say it and we'll edit it out.
Kids are sponsored by Shlomo Lazarian's friend.
Yeah.
Who?
I have to print it out.
Okay, print it out. Hamafke peritis chaveroi hareze yoitzi loy chisroides. So we're going to get into a little bit of a technical sugya. Exciting stuff. When somebody watches fruit for somebody else or produce, there's going to be some sort of loss to the produce. That's natural. And when he returns the produce, he gets 100 apples. He doesn't have to return 100 apples. He could take off a certain amount. Every type of food is different. Every type of food has different loss. Typical loss is the mice come in and eat some of it. There's other losses. The wind comes, blows away, the peel, rotting. So Amafke Peritis Chaveroi, Hareze Yoitzel Chesroinois, the shomer, the watcher, he doesn't have to give him back what he received. He can give him back a little bit less than what he received. Now, to preface this, the Gemara is going to explain that we're talking about in a situation where the fruit is mixed in with his fruit. There's a mixture of fruit. Why? Because if you give me fruit to watch and I don't have fruit, I just take all your fruit I put in my bedroom, and then you come back for the fruit, so I have to give you back exactly what's in the bedroom. There's no question. So if 99% is left, I give you 99%. If 10% is left, I give you 10%. Then there's no question. The question only arises when I mix my fruit with your fruit, and I don't know how much of your fruit is left, how much of my fruit is left, and I ate so much of my own fruit, and I don't know what happened. Then I say, okay, listen, you gave me 100 fruit. There's probably 1.5%, 2.5% loss. There might be a 10% loss. Here we have a tzaddik that went out to buy milk for the oilam. Here he is. Shkoya. Seriously, it's a big schos. You could all make. He did it? Both. Okay. It's very much appreciated. Let's say you watched the wheat and the oires. So oires, we know in Hebrew, oires means rice. Rashi throughout Shas says it means millet. It means dochan in Hebrew. It's more of the round type. Rashi and Taisus throughout Shas. The Mishnah Berurah says that we go with Taisvis, that the typical oires means rice. It's one of the minim, chamishna minim. Regardless, if you're Ashkenaz, you can't eat it on Pesach. It could be mamish chametz. It could be just rice. The point is, different produce has different chisroinis. What is it? Tisha chatzoi kabim likur. It's an interesting language. Instead of saying 4.5, it says 9 halves. 9 halves is 4.5. A kur has, here, take a look over here. A kur equals 180 kav. So 4.5 kav. That's what you take off. The red is what you don't have to return. Lissa'orim ula doichan, for barley and doichan. So doichan typically is millet, but Rashi already used that up for oires. So that's double the amount. Tisha kav l'kur. Not 9 halves, but 9 full kav for a kur, which equals 5%. Before it was 2.5%, now we're at 5%. The kusmin ula zera pishton. Kusmin is spelt. Zera pishton is flaxseed. That would be double the 5%, 10%, which is shalosh sa'in likur. A saw is 6 kav, so we have 3 saw. We take off, 10% goes to waste. Says the Mishnah, Hakol lefi amido ulefi azman. Hakol lefi amido va'akol lefi azman. Curious to see what I said. Go back to the videotape. Go back. I'm not going to go back, but hopefully somebody will send me the clip, and we'll be able to embarrass myself tomorrow, or you, or both. So, hakol lefi hamida va'akol lefi azman. In other words, for every kur, I take off 2.5%. If I have 2 kur, I take off 2.5% for each kur times 2. If I have 10 kur, 2.5% times 10. If I'm watching it for 2 years, it's 2.5% times 2 for every year. Lefi azman, every year I take off 2.5%. Omer b'yichne benuri b'chimai ichpas limlach barim. What does a mouse care? Here's a nice mouse. A mouse eats. A mouse has a family of 10. He's going to eat a certain amount. If you ever went to the safari or you ever went to the zoo, well, the zoo is a little different. You will probably never see a heavy animal. There's no such thing. Every animal, same size. The only heavy beings in the world really are humans. We overeat. Or house animals that don't do exercise, right? An animal eats. He has a million core. He eats the same amount. So who cares if there's 1 core, he eats 2.5% of the core. And if you give him 2 cores, so all of a sudden the mice are going to eat double. Doesn't make sense. Now, if you want to eat bread again in your life or cake, do not watch the following video. Here goes. This is a core of wheat. There was back in the day on like 13th Avenue, there was in Borough Park, there was a store that sold bagels and like interesting pizza 24/7. So I used to go there a lot. So behind the counter, there's a bunch of sacks of flour, and you just see the mice go in and out of the flour. The guy couldn't do anything about it. There's nothing he could do. They're in, out, eating, schmoozing, hacking over there. It's gewaldic. So Taisus says over there, the very, very famous Taisus.
You went there a lot.
That's what's so good.
I think that was the last time. When I saw it, listen, pizza, there's no controlling when you get pizza, and it burns out the germs in the oven. Says Taisus, "V'tayva the rabbanim mefarish b'Yerushalmi, v'chima yichpasu la'achbarim." Says Taisus, "V'tayva the rabbanim mefarish b'Yerushalmi, hani achbar rishoyninu." The famous Gemara. Mice are rishoyim. Why? When they see wheat, it's not enough that they eat it. The who? Oh, my shtach is ready? Let's hear it. Let's go back. Let's see who's right. Go, play it. With sound. Nachman's right. Everybody saying Nachman is right. Let's go. Says the Mishnah, call Lefi Amido Lefi Azman. Oh, he's right. There you go. Once he's right there, he's right for the oh baby. You can't say oh baby. It is what it is. Gewaldig. Okay, Shkoich, he saved us. We almost imagine we're getting out. The cruise is about to sail. No, Hamaf Gedaf Mem. You didn't see our call. Wow. Okay, because of Reb Nachman, we're going on a cruise. It says Taisus like this: the mice are rishoyim katchamim ibur. When they see the wheat, it's not enough that they eat. So that's why when you have 2 core, 3 core, they start bringing more and more friends. There's another Taisus on the bottom over here that says
They eat 10%.
the Taisus ela lekur belvad. Taisus says via Shleimar, the ein lohem revach litomim besoicha. Mice are careful. They don't just bring a lot of friends if they can't hide. They need a lot of room to maneuver. When there's more kur, there's more room to maneuver, more mice. So the famous, once we're here, we have to talk about this. The Mais are Rashayim, why? Because they bring their friends. This week's parsha, the Chasida, the bird Chasida, she's a chassid. Why is she a chassid? Because we're still 2 days away. You can still make it up for Shnai Mikra. She's a Chasida because she shares with her friends. So everybody asked the question, why is she a Chasida? If you share with your friends, you're a Rasha. So one of the answers is that she shares with her friends from Hefker, the mice share from people, what people own. They come, they take your weed, your stuff, and they share. But the question is, if the Chasida shares with her friends, and she's a Chasida, that's her name, she's a Chassid, so why is she treif? She should be kosher. The famous answer is because she only shares with her friends. She doesn't share with other groups. So if we're talking about that, I think it's very important because right now, Klal Yisroel is in a very big tzara. As a matter of fact, today, Iran is pointing missiles at us and they're threatening. It's going to be tomorrow, on Tuesday, it's going to be the last day of Ramadan. And nobody knows and people are nervous. And the people are buying water and batteries and they don't know what to do with their phones. What happens? How are you going to have a phone for 3 days without charging, without electricity, the whole thing. Klal Yisroel is in a tzara. So I think it's very important for this tzara to go away. We have to have achdos. And one of the big things that I hear over and over, and if you think about it, it's very simple. No one in this room is going to convince their friend that their Rosh Hashiva is the greatest Gadol Adar, or that their Rebbe is the greatest Rebbe that ever lived. It's never going to happen. It never did happen, never will happen. It's very rare that somebody can convince somebody to go to another Ashkafa. Nobody in this room is going to convince the other person that all yeshiva guys have to go to the army, and nobody's going to convince the other guys that all guys that go to the army have to go to the yeshiva. If we could realize that everybody was brought up in a certain way, and everybody thinks differently, but we're here for one common goal, that we're here to serve Hashem, we learn Torah together. I think that through MDY could be a great catalyst, a great pusher for Mashiach. We have here every single day, we have Robert Eli, whose son was killed in Gaza, who just sent his second son 2 days ago to Gaza, sits next to a yeshiva man that sends his kid to yeshiva every day, and they get along great. And they're not trying to convince each other to the other hashkafa. This one has a shkafa, and this one has a shkafa. Nobody's going to convince the other one. I think one of the greatest things that happened to me through MDY is that even though my family is very, very close to Rav Shach, and Rav Shach came to my bar mitzvah, my father learned chavrusa with Rav Shach, I named my son after Rav Shach, Elazar Menachem. One of my best friends that I made through MDY is a Lubavitcher Chassid, Shlomi Klein. And when he speaks to me, he calls Rav Shach, he calls him Shach, with a zilzal. They don't say Rav Shach, because Rav Shach and the Lubavitcher Rebbe, they didn't get along. And I have no problem with him. He could say Shach as long as he wants. He called me a snag 1,000 times. He's still my best friend. Because I understand him, I know where he's coming from, I know that he was hurt, and that's his thing, and this is my thing. And that I could bring a Lubavitcher speaker to speak at our Shabbaton, our main speaker, or whatever. Okay, that's not a kunz, because he's the greatest speaker, Y.Y. Jacobson. Okay, but the point is that we are here, we're trying to create achdos. Don't try to convince the other guy to go to the army. Don't try to convince the other guy to go yeshiva. Everybody has their hashkafa. Let's learn Torah, let's serve Hashem, and let's get on, let's bring Mashiach. Huh? And you know what? Mati? You could continue thinking to serve Hashem by giving beef jerky to all the chayalim is the way to serve Hashem. And he could think that learning Torah is the way to save the war. And you're both best friends. Givaldik, Mati. Thank you for coming to share and doing both.
That's what we need, $2 million.
We need another $2 million. You know how much? We could take $2 million. You know how much beef jerky went to the chayalim? $100 million minimum. It's okay to give a little to Torah also. Zog the Gemara. I don't know, I'm just saying. For sure, more than $2 million of beef jerky was donated. For sure. You have a suffix in that? How much? Binoculars and helmets. Millions. How much? Mati. Say a number. Millions upon millions. Okay, so a tiny bit for Gemara. So no, one fraction. It's not the end of the world. Nobody's going to die. Just accept it. It's positive. You can do both. Zog the Gemara. Where are we? Well, we're still in the Mishnah. Okay. Mati did take a page, yes. Says the Mishnah, you're right. There's a limit to how many mice you have and how much they can eat. So it's based on a kur. That's it. 2.5% of a kur. If you have 1,000 kurs, 2.5% of one kur. You don't time it by how many kur you have. If it's a great amount, and the Gemara is going to explain that it means 10 kur, then the owner of the wheat or the barley or whatever it is doesn't get any reduction at all. Why? Very interesting. Wheat expands with moisture. So let's say there's a 2.5% reduction from the wheat, but because of the expansion, let's say the expansion is 0.5%. I didn't do the math, whatever. Let's say it expands 0.5%. So if you have 10 kur, so the expansion times 10.5%, it's 5%. It doesn't really work out, but it will overcome the 2.5%. So, okay, so you'll say, whatever. You do half of that. You get what I'm saying? There's some sort of cheshbon here that if you have 10 kur times the expansion when it gets bloated from moisture, that will overcome what the mice ate. Okay. Says the Gemara, Oirez tu v'chasar. What do you mean that there's only 2.5% reduction? We know for a fact that rice or millet, whatever you want to call it, has more than 2.5% loss. Because we're talking about rice without a peel, so therefore it's only 2.5% reduction. How much loss is there for rice with a peel? 10%. That we'll see in the Gemara. By the way, I'm just, if you want a good eitzah that I learned on myself, if you ever go to a store that has a picture of Rav Shai Mikastir, run for your life.
Also a pizza store.
In a pizza store that has 6 Rav Shai Moshe, run! Call the what do you call it? The health department immediately. They have unlimited mice. The mice are attracted to Rav Shai and Kastir's picture.
What you said about the mice is like what we say in the Bible, to pull them so you can by ourselves, right? Like the map pull them out whether you damage it from the
Yeah, they do. They communicate somehow. If there's one, there'll be 10. Don't worry about it. Says the Gemara. Likus from Zera Pishtan Shalish Sarim Likur. Om Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Chia. Zera Pishtan begevoilim shanu. The Zera Pishtan that loses 10% looks something like this. Sorry. Begevoilim. It has the whole peel, the whole thing. So it's gonna be a tremendous loss once it dries out and the peel starts falling off naturally and the wind comes. There's going to be a big loss, a 10% loss. If it has the peel, the husk, and rice or millet that's not peeled, that equals the 10% loss. You see, it says, even if I missed that word, it's going to say it again. Each kur and kur has a 10% loss, a 5% loss, 2.5% loss, whatever it is. Multiplied by the amount of years the guy watches it. What do you mean? Rabbi Yochanan says, what? You think mice eat more when there's more kur? Well, wait, what about the regular natural loss that there are? There's a lot of natural loss. There's spoilage. There's blowing away in the wind. There's different losses. So yes, every kur is going to lose something. Tana b'medvar mamurim, and this we explained in the Mishnah. She'evrim and peiraisav. When the watcher he mixes it up with his own fruit, now we have a problem. Now we have to go to this list and look. Oh, if it's this kind of produce, 2.5%. This 5%, but it's only because he mixed it up with his own fruit. If he set aside a whole room just for that guy, take whatever's left. Shalom Yisrael. So what if he mixed it in? Look, maybe he did something wrong. Maybe he got permission. Let's assume he did something wrong. He mixed his fruit with the fruit he's supposed to watch. But he's not an idiot. He knows that he has 20 apples and that guy had 100 apples. That guy's 80%, I'm 20%. Okay, so now whatever's left over from the whole pile, he takes, let me give him 80% and I'll take 20%. What's the problem? Because he keeps on eating apples. Says Gemara, so figure out how many apples he ate. He doesn't know. Okay. But he knows that the guy gave him 100 apples. Now how much does he have to return? He ate a bunch of them. He kept on eating from his own, from the whole mixture. But the guy gave him 100. Oh, so you go to the Mishnah, you look at the list, you give him back minus 2.5%, minus 5%, depends on the type of food. If it was a large amount, then the swellness or the fact that it bloats up, whatever the word is, that covers for the loss from the mice. Kama mida meruba, what is that? You need at least 10 kur. Kama mida meruba, asara kur and 10. He took a very large measurement, like you use in let's say in a factory. How do they? I'm just assuming. How do you move wheat from place to place with a tractor? He measured it with a spoon of a tractor. The tractor, what do they call it? The shovel, whatever they call that. What is that big thing? In Hebrew, it's a kaf. A loader. Okay, so he measured like that. And he returned with the same front loader, the same tractor. If he used the tractor, then he used a small little spoon or whatever it is. Then, no, you can't do that. The guy gave him 2 shuffle words from a tractor. Don't return him 2 spoons from a kitchen. Then you can't take off any percentage because you got a lot more than you're returning. We're talking about crazy people. Of course not. The Yosef Ben Chaya Sara, he deposited in a giant measurement the shakli b'kaila zuta, and he's returning it with a small one. That can't be. So what's going on? Dilma b'mois hagorin commerce. We're not talking about measurements here. We're not talking about what kind of tractor he used. We're talking about what time of the year it was. He received it b'mois hagorin when everything is dry. B'mois hagorin was dry. Actually, I don't know if we need a. Okay, you can just see here, dry, not dry. When it's soaked, when it gets moist, it expands, obviously. So he got it when it's dry, and he returned it at the same time. Okay, great. But if he returned it when it was already expanded, and then he doesn't have to take off the 2.5% because it expands. The barrel should explode. Check this out for a second. This has no connection. Here's a guy that's doing an experiment. He took, let's say, water, put it in a metal container. He welded the metal shut, and he froze the metal container. What happens when water expands because it freezes against metal? You want to see? Here. I don't know if it has sound. Here's the metal. He puts it in. Yeah, dry ice, liquid nitrogen, whatever it is. He's freezing it. No sound. Okay, so he shows what happened. It could break metal. So the Gemara is asking, if you put produce in a barrel, the expansion should break the barrel.
But if I got an online bet, I was not going to expand it too. I'm still losing because the other would have expanded also. That I did.
Yeah, but the Gemara is asking, if it's true that there is expansion, like you're describing it, shouldn't it break the vessel? Nothing to do with you, nothing to do with me. You're telling me that wheat expands. As in a different season, it expands. To the point where it expands at least 2.5%, I don't have to return anything. Well, if it does expand, I'm proving to you it doesn't, because if you put wheat in a barrel, it should break the barrel from the expansion. I'm just trying to prove to you it doesn't really physically expand. Says Gemara, no, it actually happened, expanded. Another pshat, when you compress the wheat into a closed area, it's not going to expand. It's not water that you forced it to become ice. You're putting it in a place where it doesn't have room to expand. It can't get moist and expand. it could be a mashal to chinuch. Yeah, if you take your child and you pressure him, he won't be able to grow. You take him out, you let him. I don't know what each person. What does it mean? Take it out? You give him a little bit of freedom. You don't hover over him. You give him a little room to grow. Oh, then he expands. Mishumitza, you put him in a barrel. The lachats he's not going to be able to expand. Says the Mishnah, sponsored by Shlomo Lazarian's friend who wants me to say something that Reb Nachman Seltzer doesn't allow me. When it comes to wine, we must take off a sixth. Why? Because the wine gets not evaporates, it gets absorbed into the barrel. Now we're not talking about a wooden barrel, we're talking about a klicheres. Check this out, Rabbi Isai. Very nice little video here.
I'm sitting at the moment in the midst of a large wine press
in Eretz Yisrael.
This is just one of 5 large wine presses at the site, and this gives an idea of the large quantity of wine that's produced here. We're talking about 2 million liters annually from this one site. In the excavation here,
these are the guys I wanted to show you.
And this jar is the most typical jar we found at the site. A jar which is known as a Gaza jar or an Ashkelon jar, which are very, very similar. The shape which you could even sort of compare with a cola bottle today was something which was completely known to anybody who saw them. And these were typical jars which were used for wine that came from the area of the southern coastal plain in Israel. And of course we have many other finds. These jars over here are called Palestinian baggy jars, and they are the main kind of jars which were found all over the area of Israel right through the Byzantine period.
The kitzer, if somebody gives you wine in one of these jars, so you can assume that a sixth of the wine was absorbed inside the jar. So Gemara is going to tell us it's not a machloikis. The shtus and the chaimesh, they just lived in different areas. Their jars absorbed different amounts of wine. If you're watching oil for somebody, so you can take off 3%, 3 lug for every 100 lug, 3%, you don't have to return. Because 1.5 lug, 1.5% are the sediments. And 1.5 goes to the absorption. If it's pure, if he gave you pure oil without any sediments, and then you don't remove 1.5% for the sediments. If they're old vessels which already absorbed oil, then you don't get to take off 1.5% for the absorption. When you sell in a store pure oil, you could figure in the amount, you say, listen, I need to reduce for you the 1.5% of the sediments. Even though you're not getting the sediments, I need to reduce that. But like Bligi says, Gemara, there's no machlokes if it's a chaimish or a shtus. Ba'asri the mar chova bekira. Ba'asri the mar chova bekira. Here you go. Oh, no, it's actually this one. So here's a jug of oil. Take a look what happens. It goes down because the oil gets absorbed in the walls, and there's different ways, 2 ways to they smear the inside, they coat the inside with either wax, veloy maitzvei, so it doesn't lose a lot of oil. You only take off a 6. Why? Because they used to use tar. Umaitzvei, and that does absorb more. Gargishta, should I say the story that happened to me when I was a kid? No time. No, it's fine. If I say Gargishta, what happened? What happened was that I was walking on Shabbos with my friend, and there was a guy putting a liquid coat of tar on the street, and as we were walking by, he said, "Hey, dirty Jews." So we started running, ran away. All of a sudden, 10, 15, 20 minutes later, hatzlacha. So we go, we see that Hatzala's part. So we go, and we see them working on this guy. What happened was that he kind of fell into the boiling tar, so he got burnt. So he jumped off, but it was high up, so he fell on the ground and he broke his 2 legs. So I thought it was funny that the dirty Jews were working on him. They were like, he's unconscious, he's screaming in pain. Same guy. Okay, Bekufra. It's the type of clay that this vessel was made out of. Now we see these vessels are made. Did you know they were made out of clay before you saw this video? No, you thought it was made out of wood. It's a good thing you saw the video. Different clay. Imagine you take clay from the Dead Sea. It's different clay than Yerushalayim. It absorbs differently. Basi Rabbi Yehuda Ramu Arba'im says the Gemara like this. Rabbi Yehuda seems like he used to do business. He was a wine dealer. Ramu Arba'im Atame Kuze Bedana. They had, like, let's call it 48 cups. Okay, Stam Saber size. It's probably not a cup. It's probably much less. Here's the thing. In one barrel, there's 48 cups, and they would sell to him for 6 zuz. Very simple math. Also, dana b'shita zuzah. And they sold the barrel for 6. So what would he do? How would he make money? Paras Rabbi Yehuda shita shita b'zuzah. He sold 6 cups for zuz each. So how many cups does he have to sell to make up his 6 zuz? 36. If he sells 36 cups, 36 divided by 6 is 6. If he sells 6 cups for a zuz, by the time he sells 36 cups, he made up his 6 zuz that he bought. Now, how much does he have left over? Wine to make profit? 12 cups. He has the 12 cups on the side over here. Boom. Now, the problem is it's not all profit. Da'at lasin v'shita b'shita. So you take off 36. That's what he made. That covers his initial investment. Pashulu tracer he has 12 to make an investment. Here, but when you have wine, we just said that a 6th goes off, gets absorbed into the kli. So out of the 12 cups, Datmanya, 8 cups come off, 8 kuze come shtusei, which is a 6th. So out of the 12 cups, let's call it cups, he's down to 4, because 8 is waste. Pashul arba. So that's his whole profit is 4 cups, which is 1/12 profit. Says the Gemara of Amar Shmuel, when you're selling items that are necessary like wheat and oil and wine, you need wine to live, you're not allowed to make more than a 1/6 of profit. But he's making half of the 6, he's making a 12th. Says the Gemara, no, he's making additional profit on the barrel itself. He could sell the barrel later, and he could sell the sediments. There was a wealthy person, Rabbi Chana Wasserman, came to collect money. Now Mamish in the parsha, I became one of these Mamish feel for the guy. They asked Rav Kahanaman, they said, what are you thinking when you knock on a Gvir's door in America? He said, I'm thinking, I wish he doesn't open up the door. So that's the thought. Okay, so Rabbi Chana Wasserman knocks on somebody's door, he says, I have a yeshiva. Baranovich, I need money. So it says in a mafkid, he obviously only learned Tamafkid because this is all over Shas. It says in a mafkid that Rav Yehuda sold wine. So let yeshiva guys go work. If Rav Yehuda was able to sell wine, yeshiva guys should go work. So Chanan said, you have to understand something. That at the end of Rosh Hashanah it says that Rav Yehuda learned so much Torah that he never davened. He never had a daven. If you learn Torah all day long, then you don't do tefillah, you don't have to daven Shemona Esrei. What do you mean? He worked he sold wine. So obviously while he was selling wine, he was talking and learning. He was thinking and learning the whole time. So okay, if you and the yeshiva guys could do that, then they don't have to learn. But right now, they're in yeshiva learning. They can't concentrate and work at the same time. Says Gemara, if he's going to make money on the barrel and on the sediments, then he's going to make more than a 6th. To sell the stuff takes a lot of time. This is the 4 that are left. Okay. Barzaniah says this. This is a guy that his profession is to put the spigot in the barrel, right? Especially you have a clay barrel, so if you try to make a hole, it's probably going to break the whole barrel. So you have to know how to do it, and also without letting the wine get all over. So you have to hire a guy, special faucet guy. That costs money. You also have tircha, schlepping it, bringing it, selling it. So, all in all, he only made a 12th. Oh, shkoyach. Sponsored by Kinnovations in honor of my uncle Rabbi Chana Pressman and as zchus for Akiva Simcha Ben Fego Amen. Official mitzvah motivators in honor of Dr. and Mrs. Robert Lehman for sponsoring Gemaras and Sfarim for the Ner Talmud Kehila. They should continue learning the Daf. Zok the Gemara. If it was purified oil, you don't take off for the sediments because that's not it. And also, if it was an older barrel, you don't take off for the absorption. But at the end of the day, it does absorb a little bit. We're talking about that it has some sort of coating. I asked Tosis, we said on Amud Aleph that if it has a coating, it still absorbs, depending if it's wax, if it's this, it's less if it's wax, it's more if it's... So says Tosis, that's talking about either two pshatim, either that's wine, but oil is thicker so it doesn't absorb, or we're talking about older ones, and as the Gemara is going to say now, it's not coated at all, keeping the tone. Once the barrel absorbs, that's it, it can't absorb more. He says that if you're selling, you take 3%, or, I'm sorry, 1.5% for the sediments. Yeah, there's a question, right? Let's say you own one of these pitzuchim stores. You sell, pitzuchim, garinim. And there's a lot of nuts, there's a lot of salt on the bottom. Are you allowed to take your thing and start mixing it up? As a seller, you want to make money on that salt. It fell to the bottom, all the peels fell to the bottom. So you start mixing it up so that the next guy that comes takes a bunch of salt with him and a bunch of peels. You allowed to do that? It's a shayla. It's machloikas. You're allowed to take the sediments from the bottom and mix it up to the top. So we have machloikas whether or not you're allowed to do it. And then we pass again, not allowed to. According to Review, where you're permitted to mix it in, that's why when you buy oil, you take upon yourself, you're going to take 1.5% loss. Listen, I could have mixed it in, so the fact that I left it on the bottom and I gave you a pure product, let's say you buy a bottle of wine. What would you rather? Have a bottle of wine that the last 5% of the bottom is something you can't even drink, it's like mud? Or the guy takes out the mud, gives you pure wine, and he charges you for it. He charges another 1.5%. I personally would like to pay 1.5%. I don't want that stuff on the bottom. So if I have the right to mix it into my wine and mix it into the oil, so I'm telling you, look, I'm making a deal with you. I'm not going to mix it in, but at least pay me for it. You should accept upon yourself 1.5% loss. But the guy could tell him, wait a minute, if you would have mixed it in, then I could have sold it. I could have taken the sediment and sold it. You give me a bag of sediment on the side. It's not even part of it. How am I going to sell it? I can't sell. It's like if I buy a piece of fish from the store here, I have to pay for the skin, right? But what if he takes off the skin and he puts it in a bag and he charges me for the skin? I can't cook it like that. What am I going to do with it? I can't sell like that. So the Gemara, no, but Balabai's skin, we're talking about he needs it for his own home usage. He wants the purified product. Maybe the buyer is going to tell the seller, from the fact that you didn't mix it in, that means that you're moichel me. You're not going to charge me. So the Gemara, there's no such thing as mechila. Why? It's not. Imagine I sell you a steering wheel. It doesn't include the car. I sold you a steering wheel. No. There's a possibility that if a guy sells a steering wheel, he includes the car. The steering wheel costs $50 and a car costs $20,000. He was meichelim on the car. There's such a thing as mechila. Here, tzemed is the yoke. If I sell you a yoke, it does not include the 2 oxen. Or perhaps it does. The Tanakhama says, when I sell one thing, I didn't sell the other. You see, the guy only paid $50. Obviously, it didn't include a car. I'm not moichli you the car. There's no mechila. By the way, you take this line over here. You look at the money, and I can see what the guy wanted to buy. Based on this, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says hatzlacha in Hilchos Shabbos. For a long time, I haven't seen it. It used to be people would put like this capsule into the toilet, and every time you flushed it, you get like blue water. Gishmak made a nice fragrance. It kind of covered what's going on in the toilet. Nice blue color. Are you allowed to do it? Not. So Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says you're not allowed to. Why? He says because if you had a choice to buy the clear or the blue, which one would you buy? Buy the blue. You actually spend a little bit more money on the blue. That means you're showing that because you spent a little bit more money on the blue, you want the blue. You're not happy with the clear. So if you want the blue, then it's tzevei on Shabbos. Then you want it to dye the color of your water in the tank. And that's a problem. That's why you probably don't see it that often. Of course, it's a machlokes. Everything is machlokes. Ask Kilo, who's in Los Angeles now. Have you ever seen it? So I'm not going to use the bathroom. You're like, do you have a badat's toilet? What do you mean? It doesn't have the blue. Ketzad. Oh, there's a guy. What happened?
Nothing happened.
Which toilet? There's a guy. Okay, no time for the story. Okay, fine, I'll say it. Shachris at 8:10. No, there's a guy on a train. You know how the guy always asks the Yid in America, I'm sorry for asking, I hope I'm not rude. What are those strings? So the guy on the train says, tell me, I hate to be rude, but how are you guys so smart? He says, you see these fish heads over here? That's all he could afford. He says, we eat the fish heads. Eat a lot of heads, become a chacham. So he says, could you sell me some? He says, sure. How 20 ruble a fish head. Okay, 20 fish, buys. They get to the next train station. There's a big sign, full fish, 5 ruble. He says, well, what's going on here? How are you selling me a fish head? He says, I see the fish heads are working already. All right. He got it, you didn't get it. Okay. Zakti Gemara. Hadamim moedim. You see from the money. Shkoyach. You saved me. I was worried that Doyle's not going to get it. Hadamim moedim. You could see from the amount of money what you bought or what you didn't buy. Ketzad. Sell me just the yoke for 200. Nobody. That's not the price. Don't prove anything from the money. Since you cannot, it's also for you to mix the sediments. That's why you cannot take off 100% normally. The buyer tells the seller, you weren't able to do that. You're not allowed to mix it, and therefore I don't have to accept a 1.5% loss. No, your svar is exactly the opposite. Punkt verkehrt, they say in Yiddish. With the law of Shmarim, you are permitted to mix the sediments. I'm permitted to mix it, and the reason why I don't have to accept the 1.5% loss is because you were meichel me. That goes together with the yoke thing. There's a mechila. The review the osler of Shmarim. According to Yehuda, you're not permitted to mix the sediments. And the reason why he does accept, I'm not permitted. So since I'm not permitted to mix the sediments, so what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to take the loss. I'm here to make money. I have a business. I sell oil. So I cannot mix the sediments and I cannot charge you for it? That makes no sense. What, I do business just so people should say I'm a businessman, but I'm not making money? Dost, machnish kein sense. Tana, like Reb Shimon Pingo says weiter, we'll say it's not a story. We'll say it a different time. When at the Seder he says, just remember the main thing. Don't have all the kavanas of the kavanas harizal and the kavanas of this and this that. Don't miss the point. The point is Hashem told us to eat matzah. That's the kavana. On top of that, but don't miss the main point. The main point is to make money. He says, he brings this Gemara. If you're a businessman and you forgot the main point, you can make mistakes in business. You bought too much merchandise. You sold for too cheap. Fine. But if you forget that you're supposed to make money, you're in a big tzara. I believe that this word comes from defect. Defectim. The scum, the garbage on top of the oil, if you're a buyer and if you are a depositor, you let somebody watch it for you, you have the same halacha. What does it mean? Just like a buyer doesn't have to take the garbage on top, he wants pure oil, so too, and this really is hard to understand, so too, when I let you watch my oil, I do you a favor, you watch my oil for me, when you return it, please don't return it with the garbage, with the defects. What should I do with it? You gave it to me. This is your oil. I'm just returning the way it is. So that can't be. When I come to get my oil back, obviously I'm going to take it with all the garbage on top. It's my oil. So too, when you go to the store, you can't be picky and say, I want pure oil. You take it with the defects. Says Gemara, is that a thing? The dirty oil is only for the seller. It says Mefurish, he does not take the scum, the garbage. Says the Gemara, you're right. Depends on the time of the year. When you make the oil in the beginning in Tishrei, then you take it with the scum. When it's in Nisan, it's already purified. Like Ash, the Tishrei, you take it with the cheap oil, meaning the dirty oil. It doesn't matter when you took it or when you didn't take it. The point is, the Tishrei oil is dirty, accept it as is. The Nisan oil is clear, it had time to settle. That's a more expensive oil. Then you expect to get a clear oil. Have a wonderful day.